Welcome to Borderlands. I'm Stuart Best, your host. Borderlands is that show where we examine the mysteries, enigmas of the world, of the cosmos, where we attempt to make some sense out of all the strange events that are going on all over the world. Events that seem to be accelerating. People seem to be losing it, as it were. We got several short stories here. We're going to play a little connect the dots here and read you a few short stories that show us something very, very definitely is going on within the human mind that is not good. It's not happening just in the United States either. It's happening all over the world. Have some friends who do a fair amount of driving to get to their work, and road rage is one of the things they run into frequently. It's amazing. The world has become a pressure cooker, so to speak, for people, and not a good thing, because you can't take that kind of pressure over and over and over for a continuous period of time. Eventually something breaks. There was a movie put out not too long ago, actually, and Michael Douglas played in it, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was about a man who finally broke down in a traffic snarl and went on a killing spree, actually. And a sad commentary, basically, about modern life. I hope he's had a cure for it, but it's easy to say, but it's not easy to do. How willing are we to separate ourselves from our material possessions and go back to a more, how do we say, quiet life? I hope he said that as the world speeded up, and remember the New World Order leaders said that they were going to deliberately speed things up. They were going to deliberately make things go faster and faster and faster, and if you've watched any of the television ads, you've seen that happening. In fact, the speed of the pictures and stuff behind these ads is going so fast now it's almost hard to look at them. Well, that's by design. That's to keep putting more and more pressure upon the people so that they cannot understand what's happening around them. Mom works, dad works, the kids work, everybody works just to pay the mortgage, just to buy the food. People don't have any money left to do hardly anything. And if they go to movies, what do they run into? More pressure. Very, very rare now that you can go to a movie where you can relax and get a good laugh. It's all designed to put mankind in kind of a pressure cooker, and that's what this New World Order is. See, and at the same time, they keep increasing the laws so that they can arrest you at any time for violation of this law, violation of that law. You did this, you did that, you're a bad person, you're guilty of crimes against the state, how dare you, and throw you in prison for 10 years. And this is all by deliberate design. Go back to the protocols, that fake operation everybody says, why that couldn't possibly be true. Nobody would write such a thing as that. It's been a proven hoax. Don't you know that? Well, if it's a proven hoax, then why is it all being done? Simple question. Deserves a simple answer. But you see, you won't get one, because Jesus Christ said that these people are liars. They're deceivers. They lie through their teeth. They look at you with a smile and they lie, and inside they're thinking, this idiot. Well, unfortunately, they're probably right. President Clinton, when he was president, took a whole bunch of land there out of Utah, if I remember right, gave everybody the devil's hand, was waving it right in front of them, smiling. And I'm sure he was thinking to himself, these stupid idiots, they don't know anything. Here I am robbing them of their very land in the name of Satan and the Antichrist, and these people are cheering me on. That's how stupid, or naive, or whatever it is, blindness, Doesn't matter, I guess, what you call it. The end result is the same. But it's just amazing what happens and how it happens. And people don't do anything about it at all. Comatose. Blind. The Lord said that gross darkness covereth the people. Gross dark, not just darkness, gross darkness. In other words, they are so spiritually blind, they can't see anything on a spiritual level. They're just blind to it all. Anyway, I believe the Hopi had an answer for it. And I believe that answer actually goes along with Christianity, although if you read the Hopi stuff, it's definitely not Christian. It's of the occult. You see, what all this is leading up to, as far as they're concerned, is the new golden age. The age of the Antichrist, which, of course, to them is the Messiah. But the advice given was slow down. As things speed up, you slow down. How many of you have just turned everything off, the radio, the TV, everything, gone into a quiet little room and just sat there and read a book, or read the Bible, or just studied quietly? See, we've got our senses so tuned into things that, well, that'd be awful boring to do something like that, but that's essentially what we have to do to maintain some sort of an even keel here. Well, things are happening around the world. I wanted to read something here to you. Ari Fleischer, as you know, is George Bush's spokesman and soon going to be retiring and out, but had a kind of an interesting conversation with Ari, according to this email we got. And the question was, Ari, there are millions of conservative supporters of the president who have signed letters protesting this roadmap for peace. Does the president see these letters? Does he give any consideration to this important constituent base of his? Mr. Fleischer, there is no question the president is aware of the risks of the roadmap. And the risks of the roadmap have come principally from both edges of the debate. And, of course, within Israel, there are many people who oppose the dismantlement of these illegal outposts. But these are the actions that are required to be taken for Israel and Palestinian to live side by side in peace and security. Notice how he worded that. Peace and security. When they say peace and security, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But isn't it amazing? Here we have exactly in the same, it doesn't say security and peace, it says peace and security. That always amazes me. Shouldn't. God heard him say it, so he wrote it down to the prophets, the apostles, who in turn gave it to us. You see, the absolute accuracy of Bible prophecy is because God has seen it all go down. He simply wrote down what they were saying, gave it to us, so that when we came to that point in time, we could hear him say it too, and then we'd know. We'd know where we were on that little roadmap to Armageddon instead of the roadmap to peace. So anyway, he said, and never stop asking yourself the question, when it comes to the Middle East, how much longer can Israel and the Palestinian Authority live the way they are, with violence, with killing, with retaliation? Israel has the right to defend itself, but is there a better way? Is there a way that Israel and the Palestinian Authority can finally at long last live side by side as Israel and as a Palestinian state? Now, someone pointed out to me, I believe it's in the book of Isaiah, and I've got to look it up, that the Palestinians would, all the leaders would get together and they would declare a Palestinian state. And the Bible said it, but there was nothing there. There was nothing there. In other words, they made the declaration of a Palestinian state, but there was no state. There was nothing there. I'll try and bring that to you. Kind of an interesting prophecy, because it dealt with the Palestinians' question, evidently, according to the article I read, and I wished I'd saved it, but somehow it didn't. I'll have to get back into the computers and see if I can find it again. But basically, what it was that we watched when Bush and those guys over there announced a Palestinian state, and I think it was 2005, a fulfillment of that Bible prophecy was made. Because they did. All the leaders announced a Palestinian state. But there was nothing there. There was no Palestinian state, and there never will be. It's all going to come unglued probably before then. Anyway, there have been Arab nations that have made peace treaties with Israel, and they have honored them. Egypt has, Jordan has. Why does anybody have to assume that the Palestinian people don't want the same thing? There are terrorists who don't want it, and the terrorists are the enemy, not only of peace, but of the creation of a Palestinian state. And that's why the president welcomes the words and is now looking for the results in the actions of the new Palestinian leader, as well as Prime Minister Sharon. Question: do you know if President Bush plans a direct response to these letters, referring to his religious counterparts, constituents, or plans to meet with any of these conservative leaders? Flesher: the president's response is widely known. The president is dedicated to implementing the roadmap. Okay, since the Palestinian Authority has done no more to fulfill its obligations to the roadmap than it did for the Oslo Accords, and since yesterday's killings of 5 Israeli soldiers, my question is, can you cite any reason why, when the roadmap completely roadblocked, that the president should not end his exemption of Palestinian terrorists from his promise of war on all terrorists, Mr. Flesher? Well, the roadmap is just beginning. The roadmap is just being implemented. Well, what have they done? What have the Palestinians done to fulfill any of the requirements of last month for the roadmap, Mr. Flesher? Well, when you take a look at the statements that have been made by the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, this president statement, Mr. Flesher, well, that's exactly how the roadmap was designed to begin. They made a declaration, and there was nothing there. The Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority is determined to work with the United States and the Arab nations to rebuild their security forces so that he can indeed live up to the terms of the roadmap, which involve cracking down and dismantling terrorism. The President has confidence that over time, with the help of the United States and the help of the Arab nations and the help of Israel, the Prime Minister Abbas is the best hope for implementing the terms of the roadmap. This is an issue that has always been fraught with extremists who seek to derail the roadmap. What is important now is that the Palestinian Authority is led by someone who is not an extremist, but somebody who is dedicated to implementing the roadmap. And the president will continue to work with both the Israelis and the Palestinians, despite the recent violence, to help them to implement the peacemaking sides of this roadmap. Now you'd say, well, that's kind of an interesting thing. So what? Well, the roadmap includes the dividing up of Israel. You don't want to be dividing up Israel, because God will physically divide you up. And remember, There was the prophecy of a young man. And I think I read it either on Borderlands or the Best Global Report, but I don't have it in front of me. But basically what the prophecy was, this young boy, he was about 13 or 14, had a vision from the Lord. And the Lord told him, look, you divide up my land of Palestine. I will divide the United States of America. I'll split it in half. I'll divide it in half. Kind of interesting because we have peace and security, do we not? That's one of the primary signs we have for the times of the end. I want to read to you from Phoenix Rising. Granted, it's an occultic book, but the commonality of all of these occultic books and their earth changes, etc., 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 are that what they're gunning for and what they claim all these signs are leading to is the return of their Messiah, the golden age of the gods, when the beings, as Mary Summer Rain said, will, or no eyes, they're going to come much more. They come from the sky. They're going to talk with mankind, going to walk with mankind, going to prove things, going to help us. The arrival, once again, of the fallen angels. And a setting up of a new golden age. And a return to a dark age of no technology. Simple living. It's going to seem like a wonderful thing at first. Because all the pressures will be gone. The earth changes will quiet down. Messiah will come in the clouds, etc., etc., etc. Only problem is it's not the Messiah. Remember, the fake has to come before the real, because if the real has been here, you don't need the fake. People seem to forget that in their, particularly the pre-tribulational rapturous. Claim they're going to get out of here before Daniel's 70th week, going to get into Daniel's 70th week. Some pretty good arguments being made that Daniel's 70th week, half of it's already gone by, and we're only looking at 3.5 years. Anyway, I want to talk to you about what Mary Summer Rain recorded as No Eyes said. Summer, last time we talked about how Earth Mother start her hard labor with the phoenix. This time we're going to talk about what happened on Earth when Great Phoenix show head. When Great Phoenix come out of Earth Mother, her skin gonna tear bad. Great tears. Her breath be coming in long winds. Her mouth be dry. She be hot, then shiver with icy cold. She cry out with great amount of tears, and flood stuff with tears. Now, it's amazing what she's really saying here, because not only are there tears involved, there are tears involved, rips in the earth crust, earthquakes, gigantic rips. It's amazing that Gordon Michael Scallion, who's another New Ager, all these psychics, claim that the United States is going to be split in half, with the Mississippi River being the dividing line, essentially anyway. Probably won't be a clean split. Scientists are right now warning that the new Madrid fault lines pressures are building up to a relief point sooner than later, they think. And now they're beginning to find out that these earthquakes can be gigantic, because one fault will trigger another fault, which will trigger another fault, and they all go together. The original Madrid quake was not one quake, but a whole series of quakes that were in the 7.5 to 8 point something range, and they occurred one after the other. A tremendous shaking of the earth. Is it possible that God will divide the United States in half? Is it possible that because we have now declared that Israel must divide itself and split off part of its rightful property, that George Bush is demanding by this roadmap that God is going to fulfill this young boy's prophecies that I'll split the United States physically right in half? Can you imagine the devastation of such an event? And when it occurs, it'll probably occur very suddenly, with little warning. And this may be the time when the Great Lakes empty out into the Gulf of Mexico. We did an article on our May Prophetic Insider about Edgar Cayce. He was very, very specific, as have been all the other New Age cultic mystics, that the United States was going to not only be split in half, the Mississippi becomes about 50 miles wide, they say, a gigantic gulf, so that you can't go over the Mississippi. Just splits the country in half. Is it possible that because of what George Bush is doing, God is getting ready to do something of that nature? Well, we don't know. But anyway, I want to continue on with what she has to say. Summer, remember I say Phoenix, not cause changes. I say all change stuff come at same time, Phoenix rising out of Earth Mother. That important here. No one blame Phoenix. He gonna bring new times after change stuff all done. Phoenix. Remember what the phoenix is. This is the bird that burns up. Out of the ashes rises a new world order. So what is she saying here? The New World Order is going to arise out of, the real New World Order is going to arise out of the ashes of the Old World Order. You see, we're still even though we're in the New World, we're still really under the Old World Order. The order of Rome, Greece, Roman law, Grecian law, city-state. That concept. It's all going to be done away with. These things that change, times, and laws. Momentous earth changes, if we're reading this correctly, should in fact come before we see the arrival of the false Messiah. What we're watching now is they're trying to put together a new world order, but they need, how do we say, they need a glue, they need a Messiah to cement it all together. They need mega earth changes to do it. Them that destroy the earth. Could it be that they'll do this with Tesla technology? God simply allows them to do it, or is it that God does it himself? Well, we don't really know the answer. God can do it himself, or he can let somebody else do it for him. Same result. You split Israel in half, I'm going to split you in half. He uses the rich men of the earth to do it. Could be doing it through Tesla technology. We're simply not told. Anyway, we are told that he gonna bring new times after change stuff be done. Very, very critical remark. He gonna bring new times. He thinks to change the times and the laws. And so what do we have here? We have mega earth changes, maybe even a partial polar shift. And then we have the new, and this will bring about the arrival. I call it the first arrival. First arrival, false Messiah. And angels that he brings with him. Jehovah, everybody will think it's Jehovah and his angels. And then they will go out and they will cleanse the earth of all the evildoers. See how that works? All the evildoers will be... Well, guess who they are? That's you, folks. You're going to be the evildoers. Because, you see, you're going to recognize this guy and you're going to say, that's the Antichrist. And they're going to look at you and say, this is the Christ. You will bow down or you die. Well, if you have any brains and you can withstand the assault on your senses, you will not bow down. You will take death by a guillotine, if that's what it takes. But anyway, amazing. Mega Earth changes. Phase 1 brings in, it appears, like the new golden age of the gods that they all are talking about. And that's what she's saying. Change stuff. And he gonna bring new times after change stuff all done. So what is she saying? Well, we're going to have a whole series of phase 1 of Earth changes. We're watching the signs happening right now. So phase 1 of Earth changes probably includes the splitting of the United States into 2 parts, down through the Mississippi Valley. It may even include the Great Lakes emptying themselves into the Gulf of Mexico. It'll probably include parts of California being split off. It'll probably include mega changes on the East Coast, possibly in Florida. Changes all over the world will occur. And the world's going to think, oh boy, here it is, this is it. And Messiah shows up in his UFOs. And the changes suddenly stop. What would you think? If you were living on Earth and you didn't know anything about Bible prophecy, you didn't know anything about what the occult taught their people, why, you'd think, it is Christ, it is the Messiah, and his holy angels. Look, everything is stopped. All the damage, everything, all the millions or thousands of people killed in these earth changes, and now all of a sudden it's stopped, and look, they've got proof with them. And they're showing us that there was a great misinterpretation of the Bible. Jesus wasn't a redeemer. He was just one of many ascended masters. There's no redemption. You people are evolving here. We have the proof. We have the proof right in our hot little hands here. Take a look at it. You see, this business of creation and the fall was a myth. Was total mythology. No truth to it. Here's the proof. What do you think the Earth people are going to do? What do you really think Earth people would do? What would they do if John F. Kennedy were to show up in a UFO that landed on the White House lawn? You know, people laugh at that, but what would he do? What would the world people do? They'd bow down. Believe me, they would. They would bow down. They'd bend their knee. Remember, John F. Kennedy has been gone 40 years as of, I believe it is, November. Somebody told me. I can't remember. I think he was killed in 63. And so 40 years is 2003. Amazing, isn't it? 40 years of testing. 40 years. Is it possible that John Kennedy could show up? Everybody laughs at that, but we did a movie called Lucifer's Song, and we examined John Kennedy. It was amazing what we found. He fulfills every single parameter that has ever been laid down for the Antichrist except for the return. He even fulfills the head wound. He even fulfills the convalescent period. Only thing is, he's never shown back up. Well, that doesn't mean he is the Antichrist then, does it? It just means that John F. Kennedy could be a type, kind of a duplicate. If it even applies, some of those parameters may not apply to an individual. We don't know for sure. going to find out quick enough, I believe. Peace and security. Peace and security. The division of Israel into a Palestinian. Can you imagine that? George Bush claiming to be a Christian. Doesn't even know enough about Bible prophecy that anybody that troubles themselves with Israel and Jerusalem is headed for trouble. Anyway, he gonna bring new times after the change stuff be all done. After. After is the key word. So, what did the Bible say? He thinks to change times and laws. Big time changes. Well, we're seeing minor stuff now, but they've got to have something here that's really, really going to crank the world's population up all over the globe. Now, you could do that with a nuclear war, I suppose. You could do that with mega terrorist events, and you could also do it with earth changes. You see, you could do it with earth changes because virtually everybody has heard this stuff about earth changes coming. It's just that they kind of file it away and say, yeah, sure. Yeah, I believe that when it happens, blah, 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 blah. Tell people to leave California when they listen. No, they won't, because it's a beautiful state. I don't know if any of you have been out there. Probably some of you even live there. It's a beautiful state. You go up on the coastal areas there, it's gorgeous. I'm not saying L.A. and the cities are gorgeous, but rural California is really, really something to see. And it's all going to vanish in the twinkling of an eye, virtually overnight. And when it comes, it's going to come with a vengeance. Oh, we're already getting the precursors of the earth changes, phase 1. You see, all of the signs that we're seeing, all of the things that are happening, are actually only the beginning, you see, of how do I say, the beginning of phase 1, the arrival of the Antichrist, not so much the arrival of Christ, because remember, Antichrist comes first. He comes first, and because he does come first, why then all of the signs, all of these precursor earth changes that are beginning to show up, all of the precursor events are announcing the arrival of the Phoenix. He gonna bring new times after change stuff be all done, she said. We'll be right back after the break. Okay, we're back. Talking about Earth changes, talking about the arrival of the Phoenix, the New World Order, we could just as well say. That's what she's calling. The Phoenix is the New World Order. The order of the Antichrist. You see, the world order that they're trying to develop today is really not the world order that's actually coming. The world order they're trying for today fails. A lot of people don't realize that. Because there are going to be mega changes, and then comes the fake arrival. You see, this is all man-made stuff. Oh, they're operating. It's kind of a deception in a way, because everybody, this is the New World Order. Well, it is in a way. It's the New World Order. But the New World Order of the elite is not the New World Order of what is soon to arrive. Because remember, the New World Order that the Bible is talking about has a leader that is extremely powerful and can do miracles. Even him whose coming is after the workings of Satan with lying signs and wonders. And so when you start really putting all of this together, you see that the New World Order we have in front of us that George Bush and company are trying to set up will be revealed for being probably evil. And then the light bringer, Lucifer, will arrive, you see, after the earth changes. You see, you got to put this thing together. When you start putting this thing together, it gets very fascinating, because the New World Order of today, with New York City, the great city and all that, they're going to bring this all in, remember. But they'll have earth changes and all kinds of mega events to occur, including the arrival of their Messiah, who may even expose part of the New World Order and Bush and all those and just do away with them. We don't really know exactly how it's going to happen. We don't really know exactly how this sacrifice is going to happen. They'll sacrifice their own for this New World Order of theirs. And the New World Order has a messianic tint to it. It has an extraterrestrial, if you want to word it that way, an extraterrestrial alien bent to it. It has elements of the divine in it. You see? Going to be very, very hard to determine, well, what's going on here? What's the work of Satan? What's the work of man? Well, if it's the work of man, through his dupes, it is the work of Satan, you see, through high technology. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and watch, but kind of interesting what she says here. He's going to bring new times after change stuff be all done. She said it a couple times, so it was very, very important to her. Some are people's, all right, I understand that, she says, no eyes. Inhaling a deep breath, the old one held it a minute and then exhaled slowly. Some are people's gonna already know about big tearing in California. That gonna be most bad one. That one be most bad tear. You mean earthquake? She nodded. Some are many places no have tears happen. Many places no have earth rumble ever. That gonna change. Big noises gonna come from Mother Earth deep down inside. They're gonna be coming more and more times in new places, places where no tears ever been before. Places where no tears ever been before. In other words, the actual plates where they have been geologically stable and no recorded quakes are suddenly going to start breaking up. Going to be big rumbles, she's saying, coming from deep within the earth. Now, this is amazing when you consider all of this, because that's what Gordon Michael Scallion has said. That's what Edgar Casey said. That's what the mystics and whatnot have said when they've talked about these earth changes, that all of this starts way deep down below the earth crust. that suddenly changes begin to occur there, and they make their way outward, and they finally hit the crust, and then the situation really begins. Now, Casey said if you see Pelée or Etna, and that group of volcanoes go off, you'll know it has begun. Changes, he said, in the Arctic and the Antarctic. We already have a thinning of the ice sheets. Major thinning of the ice sheets been reported on our Best Global Report and on our Prophetic Insider right along. These changes are coming. Massive changes. Humongous changes. I'm going to write an article about all of this here and try and pull it together for people because it's very, very important to understand what's coming. And insofar as we can determine from all of what the occult says, from what the Bible has to say about it. See, the Bible is not non-specific, but doesn't give a lot of details. It just says, well, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and the occult is apt to be a little more specific about that, and why? Well, because if this comes true, they can point to it, see, and they can say, see, this came from a divine source. Now, people have a tendency to drop off all those things that weren't true. But the one common element, the one common thread among all of the occult and prophecies like this no-eyes are the new golden age is the Messiah, when, of course, you and I know it is the false Messiah. Anyway, big tearing in California. Big tearing. That's got to be when California breaks off and starts to go in the sea. It's got to be close, folks. It's got to be close. There are major changes taking place right now in California. The Three Sisters volcano area, there's a huge area that is slowly rising. Scientists have had their eye on it for a long time. There's got to be a huge caldera there, a huge area of molten lava that's building very quietly, very silently. There's another one in Yellowstone that's building. It's tipping the entire lake of Yellowstone. If you go out there, go to the south side of the lake, you're going to see trees underwater because it's tipping. Well, scientists say, well, we just don't know when that thing could go, but if it does go, it's going to virtually destroy the United States when it happens. This is very, very important to what's going on and what Bush is doing in the Middle East. We're seeing a convergence of things. All right. Then she says, summer, many places no have tears happen. So earthquakes and rips in the earth crust are going to happen in places all over the United States. Okay? And many places, she says, no have earth rumble ever, but that gonna change. Big noises gonna come from Mother Earth, deep down inside. That's very, very strange, because my wife and I were sitting up here at the house the other day. It was at night. Suddenly we could feel and hear this low, low rumble and vibration. It only lasted for about maybe a minute, then it quit. We never could figure out what it was. I think you're going to hear and see a lot of strange things going on like that. I don't know if it had anything to do with it. Might have been somebody starting something up somewhere. Maybe somebody drilling a tunnel somewhere. Then this Mary Summer Rain says, no eyes, these quakes are already showing up. When we lived in a log cabin in Rainbow Valley, we heard the rumble. Then we felt a ripple go through the house. It was very eerie. Well, that no big stuff. No, I talk about more and more stuff even. They gonna show up in many new land places. They gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger as Phoenix rise birthing place. Mother Earth move much under skin. She gonna make big moves. Now remember what was said here. About Phoenix. No can blame Phoenix. He gonna bring new times after change stuff be all done. So this has got to be phase one. This is all phase one stuff. This is big stuff. No, we're talking about, borrowing her phraseology, big stuff. Reminds me of George Carlin in his comic routine on stuff. Your stuff versus my stuff. This is big stuff. This is Earth stuff. All right? Anyway, this line of thought naturally led me directly into the subject of volcanoes. It would stand to reason that logically, if the plates were in such a forceful movement, then the pressure would indeed be unbearable for the Earth's delicate crust to retain without more avenues of release. No wise, there will be more volcano activity, right? She nodded. Yep. Many more stuff going to be coming out. This time's many more people move away. Hot rocks gonna take many houses. Hot rocks be all over stuff. Earth Mother blow and blow stuff all over. That's Earth Mother saying my stuff better than your stuff. That's what that's saying. Anyway, and Earth Mother blow and blow stuff all over. All right, let's take a look at that. First, they say there's a big tear in California. This is what Casey and all the rest of them say. You want to go to the Cascade Mountain Range. It starts up there in northern Washington, goes all the way down through Oregon, down through California. Actually, you got that big San Andreas fault line, and you got other faults out just off the coast of Oregon. Huge underground volcanoes are still operating there. This whole area begins to break up, goes into the sea. We have asked people to get out of California. We've asked people to get out of Oregon and Washington State for a long time now, simply because it takes time to sell your property and move. You can hardly sell it if it's under the water unless you're selling an aquarium or something of a new type, because that's what it's going to be if there's anything left. When this thing goes, folks, it's going quickly, virtually instantaneously, with virtually no warnings whatsoever. And it's amazing. I was reading a young man that had some prophecies about that. He'd been given a dream vision, and he said, I was in California, and the quakes had begun, and the sea was coming inland, and people were dying, and it was just a horrible scene for everybody. And once that begins, you're not going to get out. So anyway, please take that in mind. Anyway, she says this. Now, are you talking about Hawaii and Washington State? No eyes, talk about all over. She said by extending both her arms. But there aren't volcanoes all over. Gonna be, she said. Then you're saying that the dormant volcanoes are going to be hot again. No eyes say old holes be hot again. I guess you mean old craters? What that? I explained what craters were. I told her about areas where old craters were grown over with trees and that towns were now built on them. I told her about the gold that had been successfully mined from Cripple Creek because of the old volcano crater that it sits on. Tisk, tisk. Town's gonna blow. People better go in big hurry. Summer, I talk more stuff even. I see land blow high where no land blow before. New volcanoes? A bobbing head was my answer. Well, what about the Rocky Mountains? What about Pikes Peak? Oh, great. Now you're telling me that Pikes Peak is going to blow sky high. No eyes, do you know where I live? Yup, summer better move too, she said. Maybe Pike's Peak only gonna shudder, rumble some. Summer better move away. Earth Mother gonna breathe real hard. Phoenix be hard on her. She gonna blow her breath all over. It be fiery hot. It gonna dry the land up. Big part of land gonna be all dry. It gonna be burned crispy. She paused to allow me to digest that, and I realized she meant a return to the Dust Bowl. Now this is fascinating in view of the prophecies of Jeremiah against the United States. Remember when Jesus said, get away from her and get out of her because you're going to be partakers of her plagues? How many of these plagues are going to be natural disasters? As the new world order of evil rises up, you see George Bush and his police state? As that all starts to come together, you see how God is responding with natural disasters? The 420 tornadoes that ripped through the mid part of the country, there's more to come. You watch. The declaration of a Palestinian state is going to bring big-time trouble to America through natural disasters. So be on the lookout for some big stuff. As Noah says, big stuff going to happen all over. Big stuff. Anyway, and that not all Earth Mother breath gonna do. She gonna blow hard over land. She gonna blow down over farm, through cities and mountains. She gonna blow waters round lands. Breath gonna take plenty waters over many lands. Now, I want to digest this one for a minute. You know what she's talking about here? Partial polar shift, I think, is what she's talking about here. If you have winds that are blowing so hard that they actually move the lakes and the oceans out of their beds and wash up over the land, you're talking about a partial polar shift where we'll say 20-degree shift from the North Pole to where it is now to the North Pole, maybe where it ends up. Even a 20-degree shift would cause momentous winds. A full polar shift would be all but devastating to the United States of America. It would destroy the United States of America. But she says that this is going to happen. And she mentioned wind from water to land. Well, they say, well, that's possibly hurricanes. Winds take water over the lands, there would be widespread areas of massive flooding. So, is she talking about a polar shift? It's possible. It's a partial shift. All of the psychics, all of the New Agers, the mystics, you got to divorce this. Keep this divorced in your mind from Bible prophecy. Because Bible prophecy is 100% accurate. We're just plugging in the details of what Satan is telling his people. You got a polar shift here of 5 to 20 degrees, or we have mega, and I do mean mega, hurricanes. Now, we have a forecast this year for some big changes because of El Nino. If El Nino intensifies, the hurricanes could get massive in size, and that could fulfill part of that. We don't know yet. We're going to have to wait and see. But the way this sounds, plates breaking up, California, Washington, Oregon falling into the sea, parts of the South going underwater, Great Lakes spilling into the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi becoming 50 miles long, all of this leading up to the arrival of the false Messiah, if this is what's coming. Boy, would the world be ready for the false Messiah, wouldn't they? And you got to understand that God is behind a strong delusion. God is the one behind this. So this is all very, very amazing stuff that we're talking about. We don't really know the sequence totally, but this is the sequence she gives. Earth changes come first, then new times, new laws, Phoenix rises, New Age rises. And her definition of the New Age is go back to old Indian ways. She says that in the back. And she says, all races now be equal. All men will live and work and play with total unit of humanity. Barriers all torn down. But what would be most beautiful will be the way in which man lives. No eye showed me a most unique view of civilization wherein technology developed innovative energy sources. There's your alternative energy. The problem of gravity was conquered. There's anti-gravity devices. By a method which enabled man to reverse and control the magnetic polarity of the earth. That one discovery has endless ramifications. All the lower life forms will be allowed to roam untouched. There's your wilderness areas. People will have learned to eat according to the earth way. They will have devised new construction techniques and new structures. They will cultivate high-yield protein crops which will have halted world hunger. They will join in a universal worship and recognize their planet as a living entity. There is Gaia that freely supplies all their needs. They will be one in brotherhood of humanity. They will be one with all of life as they recognize the peace of living the way of the Indian nation, the earth way. You see what they're doing? I get accused of mixing in all kinds of occultic stuff and not differentiating and telling people to read all. I got a guy that attacks me constantly from the East Coast, like that Lisa Ruby. We're finding out some very interesting stuff, by the way, about Lisa Ruby, which I'll bring to you as soon as we have it confirmed. But there's this totally ulterior motive to what she's doing, which is what I suspected in the beginning. But anyway, he says, I write everything, referring to me, he writes everything from an occult perspective rather than a necessarily biblical one. Now that's an absolute lie. Absolute lie. These people bear so much false witness. It's absolutely incredible. It gets me kind of angry, actually, when I read that kind of stuff, because it is not true. I always do this from a biblical perspective, and I tell people to watch what the Bible says. That's the only guide you have. This just fills in some interesting details. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.